We are recording it now. All right. The panelists are each going to have a few minutes to talk to us, and then we'll open it up for questions. While the presenters are speaking, we ask that you list your questions in the chat function. I hope most of you guys know how to utilize that, located at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and direct them to Laura Barnett. She's our operations manager and will do her best to field the calls. We're going to do our best to respond to all your questions, but if the time runs short, we will attempt to reply later. So it might be a good idea to add your email address to the question, just in case. We're also going to try and pose a few questions as we go through. We'd appreciate your responses. At One Montgomery Green, we're committed to supporting the environment, and events like this are part of that commitment to provide you with real information, hopefully in real time. Of interest to us this year, and particularly last year, is the impact of plastics on our environment, as evidenced by our hosting this screening and discussion. Another program that we're working on primarily for MCPS students is called Clean Headwaters, where we're actually taking those students out into the local streams in search of microplastics. During this time, we've had to modify it, but the students have been with us and we've been online. So if you want to learn more about that or some of our other programs that we're going on, please feel free to visit our website, onemontgomerygreen.org, and learn more about these programs and upcoming events like our virtual green drinks at the end of the month. Before we begin, let me thank our co-hosts, Sierra Club Montgomery County, Safe Healthy Playing Fields, Do the Most Good, and our partners like Bethesda Green and the Tacoma Park Mobilization Group. And of course, all you others who shared this film. So let me introduce our panelists and then I'll get them started. So Adam Ortiz from DEP, you can wave. Evan Glass from council member from Montgomery County, and Amy Moran from Sierra Club Montgomery. So Adam, we're gonna let you start. You can mute, don't forget to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
All right. Well, Wendy and everybody in the community, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And thank you so much for having me. It's a distinct honor to serve the county as your Department of Environmental Protection Director. We have more than 300 staff and consultants who are working every day to make sure that the county is clean, green, and beautiful. And I also want to give a shout out, and I know you'll join me, to all of the frontline workers that we have. The news covers first responders a lot, and healthcare workers that certainly deserve recognition and support, but all the folks picking up your trash and recycling and taking care of it at the transfer station, those are also frontline workers, and they're showing up every day to make sure that all that material is taken care of. So I just wanted to share a few notes on stuff that we're working on. This topic could not possibly be more timely. I have so much to say, and I'm already down to just 8 minutes to cover it all. So I'll hit a couple of highlights, but first, I just want you to know that I'm joined by one of my reusable water bottles. I'm here for this in all meetings, and I did not plan this in advance, I swear, Wendy, but this sticker may look familiar here. Oh my God, climate change is real. OMG. So I'm not pandering. All right, this was here before. I am pandering, but this was pre-pandered. But anyway, appreciate you and what you're doing. So see, there are a few things I want to cover. Montgomery County we're really stepping out to address plastics. So I'm going to do a little show and tell, then another little show and tell, and tell you what I'm doing about it. And I haven't seen that frontline piece. And then there's been 2 other documentaries on plastics released in the last year that are excellent. And what we've discovered is that we can't look to the federal government to step up. We can't look to the industry itself to step up. Local governments have got to step up. So I'm also joined here today by 1, 2, 3, 4 plastic receptacles. Now, hold up in your hands, of these 4, how many you think are actually recyclable?
Can I answer? No, none.
So the answer is only 1 is actually recyclable. So this one looks like it's recyclable. It has a little recycling symbol on the bottom. It's not recyclable. This one, it's a solo cup. you know, if you may remember or not remember from your college days. It also has a recycling symbol, not recyclable. This one, also recycling symbol, not recyclable. This one is a number 1, it is. So those 3 are number 6 plastics. And number 6 plastics, although they have the symbol on them, are made of made of polystyrene, which, as you may remember, is the same material that makes styrofoam. The difference is styrofoam is expanded, and this is not expanded styrofoam. So even though it looks recyclable, we get a lot of that material in, and we end up like just picking it out and throwing it out. So, so that's one little show and tell. The second show and tell might require a little bit of technical luck if I could do it right. So I'm going to share my screen.
Beautiful. And
show you a scene from the county's recycling facility. So I took this video myself. This is our recycling facility where you send all your stuff. So I want you to note the worker who's here on the line. Can everybody see that? It's stilled right now? Okay. So I want you to watch her, and her job, she's in the pre-sort area, which means that she tries to pull everything off that cannot be bundled and sold as a recyclable plastic. So I want you to look at just the sheer area in front of her and how much of it is she's taking off. All right, so you saw like at the beginning, the table was full of material. And by the end, more than half of that material has been cleaned off. And it's true that in the recycling area, in the recycling facility, about 60% of what comes in can be recycled, but about 40% actually gets thrown away. So I'm going to try to stop sharing. Did I do that right? Can you see my face? I can't see yours anymore, but I'm going to assume, are those nods? Yes, okay, there you are. All right, so what are we doing about it? My time is almost up. Right before the crisis hit, our administration sent across the street to Councilman Glass and the council 3 bills to try to get to the plastics problem. One is clarification on straws. There was not enough time to go into it, but we need a little more clarity on the straw ban to get plastic straws out of the county. So it's sort of a cleanup bill, so that one has been sent over. The second one is a ban on number 6 plastics. So if you remember from the documentary, very confusing system. Some say there's a lot of greenwashing. Basically, you can't trust that symbol all the time on the bottom. I'll take some questions, I'm sure, on that a little bit later. So it's banning number 6s, and as far as I know, we would be the first jurisdiction in the United States to ban number 6 plastics. So, so that's over there. And then the third one is a bill that lets the county executive, by regulation, prohibit other materials that are nuisance plastics for which there's an ecological or environmental alternative. So those are big steps that we're taking forward to try to begin to get to the plastics issue. 2 other things I'll hit, and then I'll pass the mic over to the next speaker. One is that I'm also working with Prince George's County and Washington, D.C. on trying to find ways to hold the manufacturers more responsible. So we have to step up as a government. We're trying to reinvest and improve our recycling facility and our ability to compost. We're stepping up. We're asking you to step up. We're trying to educate you on which plastics are or not, but the manufacturers have not been held accountable. So I'm going to be working with national organizations to see if we could change the symbology, that you only get that recycling symbol if it is truly recyclable in a municipal setting and municipal facility. So that's number 1. The second is that we're looking at ways to quantify the amount of externalized costs that the manufacturers have on the counties. We estimate anywhere between $10 and $20 million a year are sent on to you in the form of litter, in the form of non-recyclable plastics that we have to pull out and then send to the incinerator that you're paying for. So we want to find a way to hold the manufacturers accountable, that they end up paying that bill or some other kind of cost share to take some responsibility for these plastics. And then the last thing I want to leave you with, which is not plastics, but it's related and very cool and aligned with our zero waste goals, is the launch of our composting program. So we're focused now on commercial composting for this year. I know that a lot of you are composting at home or in your backyard like I do right over there. So we have launched a commercial composting program where we're looking to collect 4,000 tons of commercial food waste. We've identified 27 partners already, from Holy Cross Hospital to the colleges at Shady Grove, Montgomery College, some schools, and a number of ethnic supermarkets. So we're really excited to begin doing that. We have a little truck that we bought to pick up the food compost, and we have a 3-year agreement with Prince George's County Organics Composting Facility to take it there. So we're moving, we're grooving, we got a lot to do, and we're looking to have your help. So thank you, Wendy.
Awesome, that's great. For a reminder, that was Adam Ortiz from the county's Department of Environmental Protection. So Evan, you're up next.
Okay, good evening, Wendy, and everybody else who is joining us to talk about plastics. I really appreciate you putting this together. It was my understanding that this was something that had been in the works and trying to have it at Brookside and have some other bigger events, and so I'm glad we're able to go virtual, save some energy, and do it from my kitchen or your kitchen, wherever you might be. You know, I don't have any props like Director Ortiz does, but I will, you know, I have to say, you know, I have a soda stream in the back, right? So that's how I'm trying to do things. And my composting bin is outside that window, actually, now that I'm looking at myself. So getting that pandering out of the way, as Adam said, let me, in the brief 9 minutes or so, let me just give you a little update on what we're doing. As we all know, dealing with the current health crisis that we are trying to protect ourselves with, we are experiencing social distancing and following the CDC guidelines and medical directives, and that prompted a very robust conversation at the county council, where a bill was introduced to rescind the 5-cent fee that we currently apply to plastic bags that you all know. I will say right now that I did not support that from the beginning, and I was one of 2 council members who did not sign on as co-sponsors. And ultimately, as the public conversation grew, many of you, I know the Sierra Club in particular, but many of you, I'm looking at the list of every participant, wrote in and said that it was not a wise use of our time to try and rescind that fee. And I thank you and applaud your efforts there in advocacy. For me, I bring my reusable bags when I go to the grocery store, because I think that's actually the best way to protect not only myself, but all the frontline cashiers and grocers and everybody else. I'm coming in with my bag. I don't want you to touch my stuff. I'm not asking you to touch my stuff, and I think it's the safest way, quite frankly. And so that's why I do not think that we should have rescinded the 5-cent fee. And thankfully, we didn't. Another thing that I'll share with you is that with regards to the plastic bags themselves, in 2019 alone, I believe that DEP distributed around 50,000 reusable bags. And so there is no shortage of reusable bags. If any of you need them, contact me, contact Director Ortiz, and we can get some bags to you. But I think, you know, taking a step back from the work here on the council, when we were talking about the plastic bag fee and rescinding it, I started doing some research, and I saw that basically the petrochemical industrial complex has been putting forth those proposals all around the world. And so it wasn't just here in Montgomery County where we're having this conversation, but it was in other large jurisdictions. And so I'm glad we stood up to the American Chemical Council and other chemical makers and manufacturers and said, you know, we don't believe you. Reusable bags are still safe, and we're going to keep using them. Switching gears a little bit, I know that straws is something that we are going to be talking a little bit more about. Director Ortiz just discussed piece of legislation that the executive sent over to the council. But to give you a little backstory on where we are in straws, in 2015, the council passed a bill which actually put into law that single-use straws are to be considered disposable food service ware, right? So straws were being put in the same category as single-use bowls and trays and cups and cartons, forks, spoons, for those aficionados out there, sporks as well. And we mandated that all of those materials must be compostable. And so that was the ground floor. That's why we basically banned a lot of the types of containers that had been out there. But little known to many people, straws are included in that compostable requirement. And so probably the clarification that Director Ortiz alluded to is, well, you know, straws have to be compostable, but what are we going to do with them? And so that is a conversation that we're going to have. You know, outright bans. There are outright bans on straws that currently exist in cities of Seattle and Miami Beach. But as many of you know, that there are some healthcare providers and particularly some advocates who work with members of our disabled community who say that straws are still a necessity, and I understand that, and I know that my colleagues know that as well. But last thing I'll say on straws is that I'm glad that there are some corporate partners who are taking the step to make sure that their businesses and the patrons within their businesses minimize or outright stop the use of plastic straws. So some of those corporations that are replacing straws with recyclable, compostable type straws are, let me just look at this list: Starbucks, American Airlines, Marriott, Disney, McDonald's, Hyatt, Royal Caribbean, if anyone could think about going on a cruise right now, and Alaska Airlines. And so, so those are some corporate partners that are taking a step out there to do what they know and what we know to be right. And then the last thing I will speak about, and we can come back up to this later if anyone has any questions. Right now, we're in the middle of budget, and we are trying to work through $5.8, $5.9 billion budget here in Montgomery County. And given the economic realities, or at least uncertainties that are out there, we are doing our best to make sure that it is a same services level budget as the current fiscal year. So in fiscal year FY20, it was a $5.8 billion budget. The executive introduced a $5.9 billion budget. And my guiding light, and I think it's fair to say that of my colleagues as well, is to make sure that we can provide the social safety net that we currently have for everybody in Montgomery County who needs it now more than ever. And that as we go through this budget process, the one thing that we try to minimize at all costs are layoffs and furloughs of our 10,000 plus workforce here in Montgomery County that do all these vital services, from the recycling to every other service that you can think of. And so with those as our guiding light, we are unfortunately having to pare back some new ideas and proposals because we just want to make sure that our budget makes sense moving forward. That said, the last budget, we appropriated $400,000 for the Climate Mobilization Task Force. And again, looking at the list of everybody who's participating in this, I know a number of you participated your time, talent, and treasure to those efforts to come up with, I think, over 700 or 800 different recommendations for Montgomery County to adopt in law or in regulations to make sure that we're cleaner and greener. And so we have another $400,000 that's been proposed, and we've tacitly approved that just yet. And so there's more work to be done in that regard. But I'll close by thanking all of you who participated in the Climate Mobilization Task Force. I attended the event where some of those ideas were shared, and they were wonderful. And now comes the hard work of trying to make sure that we can adopt some of them and enact some of them. Some cost money and some don't. And so over the next year or so, I look forward to a conversation with many of you about how we can do some of these things given the new reality and the new normal that we're operating in. But there's a lot of good work that's been done. And as we've just noted, there's a lot more that we can be doing. And so I look forward to the conversation that will ensue over the next 45 minutes.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Councilmember Glass. So for our last panelist, Amy from Sierra Club Montgomery County, it's all you.
Thanks, Wendy and Adam and Evan. Great information. So I'm looking out my front window and there's a sign on my lawn. My son's a senior in high school and the sign says, "Congratulations, seniors, class of 2020. The sign's made out of plastic, corrugated plastic, kind of like a lot of those political signs you're going to see in a few months on people's lawns. Don't put those in your recycling bin. Find something else to do with them. Maybe one day we'll get a place at the transfer center to take care of those. But right now, they're nice looking signs, but not recyclable. Okay. So, as a consumer, I find it incredibly frustrating to try to get away from plastic. And I'm someone who thinks about it a lot. So buying food in bulk or in recyclable containers helps. And for those whose lives are not consumed with a zero waste lifestyle, their challenge is often an economic one. Very often plastic packaging is cheaper than paper or glass. Increasingly, there are no alternatives, especially in food deserts. Fortunately, we don't have that issue so much in our county with so many grocery stores. Right now, thousands of residents are receiving food assistance packaged in single-use disposable plastic. That's putting more pressure on our waste system, unfortunately. Like I had kids almost 2 decades ago, and by now it's just appalling that you see baby food sold mostly in single-use tubes, not glass jars. 16% of our waste going to the incinerator at Dickerson is in fact plastic. And the biggest subcategory, almost half of that, is film plastic. So we've got to get this number way, way down if we want to become a zero waste community in Montgomery County. As we saw in the film, plastic reduction isn't just about waste. It also has tremendous climate change impacts. According to the EPA, 46% of greenhouse gases are due to the manufacture of products and packaging. It's cheaper to package products in plastic or styrofoam than it is to package them in paper, which is much more recyclable. The fossil fuel industry sees plastics as a profitable pivot away from dirty energy and transportation fuels. Local governments do have an important role to play. Adam and Evan have mentioned some of these actions our government can take. We think these are low-hanging fruit and should be implemented quickly. Now let's talk about the Shady Grove Waste Transfer Center. That's the beating heart of our waste system. When you go there right now, you can take lots of different kinds of hard to recycle plastics like laundry baskets and kiddie pools. And to Adam, thank you so much for keeping the transfer center open during this difficult time, and also still letting people have bulk waste trash collections as people start doing their spring cleaning and emptying out their homes and garages. We really are thankful for that. And the county has a zero waste task force that's close to submitting its final report. The task force will support development of a kind of an eco-industrial park where consumers, nonprofits, and businesses have a kind of materials exchange. I like to call it kind of a reimagined MRF, if you will, along the lines of some place called Urban Ore in Berkeley, California, and in other cities. We see that as a place for nonprofits like Second Chance, Community Forklift, Habitat for Humanity, A Wider Circle, to partner with the county to help residents with unwanted but still useful supplies and furniture. And there are opportunities for plastic to be handled there as well. State governments, too, are critically important players. Last year, the General Assembly passed a very important food container foam ban, although Montgomery County had led the way with our own. The Sierra Club fought hard in 2016 to enact a strong refundable beverage deposit law in Annapolis, but the beverage industry, which wants to keep using virgin plastic, killed it. Now, Delegate Sarah Love is working to get legislation passed that will ensure that we send more plastic beverage containers back to the manufacturers. Now, what can we as citizens and taxpayers and activists who care about the planet do to fight big plastic? Well, let's first realize that plastic waste is also a taxpayer issue. If you happen to own a home, take a look at your property tax bill. You will see a solid waste charge. It's around $400 a year. What does it pay for? It pays for a weekly collection of our waste, paper, plastic, aluminum, recycling, bulk trash, and yard waste. Well, a big part of that, about $10 million annually, goes toward operating our recycling facility. And one problem is that there's no incentive to reduce your plastic consumption. When you think everything can be recycled into other useful products, let's just put it in our blue bin. So you feel good that our county still makes money from selling the waste to downcyclers. But the fact is, as the film showed, these plastics are really only recyclable a couple of times, if at all. In addition, you pay the same amount of taxes if you put out almost nothing plastic in your blue bin and your neighbor fills up theirs with empty bottled water and Gatorade containers. You can refuse to buy the plastic in the first place, but you'll still pay for your neighbor's plastic waste and trash. That's why we support unit-based trash collection, or something called pay-as-you-throw. That's a concept being used in hundreds of cities and towns across America. It works essentially like a water or a gas utility because it's based on use. With trash, the more you throw away, the more you pay. The less you throw away, the more you save. And we believe that Montgomery County should transition to this model, and we hope you'll write to Evan and other council members in support of this. The more they hear from the residents about ways to reduce our waste, the more they'll listen. Single-use plastic bag waste is still a major problem in our county, as it is throughout the world. Our foam ban has helped transition restaurants and stores toward recyclable foodware, but we still have tremendous amount of single-use utensils, as Adam said, unfortunately, that hopefully they'll be replaced in the future with compostable ones that can be broken down at our future county-run compost facility. Last fall, a group of Sierra Club volunteers conducted a shopper's survey of people's bag choices at 57 grocery stores, from Bethesda to Wheaton to Germantown to Olney. In total, we observed more than 10,000 shoppers. What we found was certainly positive if you compare it to other counties in our state where no plastic bag fees or bans are yet in place. In the law, even though it's been in place for 8 years, we found that about 60% of shoppers were either bringing their own bag or using no bag at all. Pretty good, right? Well, when we did that survey 5 years ago, the statistic was closer to 65%. So we have some more work to do on the education side. We were, however, very pleased that the council, as Evan mentioned, did the right thing and kept the 5-cent fee that we worked so hard to put in place. Indeed, Montgomery County is one of more than 200 local governments across the nation that have fees or bans on plastic bags. The large majority of these cities have full bans, and ours is just a 5-cent fee. We support a full ban on these single-use thin plastic bags, and we would like to see a 10-cent fee on paper bags. We ask you to, again, contact your council members and ask them to enact such legislation. We also support having the county work with dry cleaners to reduce plastic bag usage, and with grocery stores to reduce produce bag waste by offering for free or for sale at maybe a discounted price reusable produce bags. I know that people are nervous about those kinds of things right now, and it's probably something that more people will be interested in after we get over this hump, this pandemic. So it's not necessary that we need to push it right now. And farmers markets too can stop offering those single-use reusable single-use disposable bags, or not offer them at all. So behavior change, we think, is really, really important. Manufacturers. We support the concept of extended producer responsibility that was talked about in the film. It's like polluter pays. It means that if you, after you finish getting everything you possibly can out of your trash, what's left is basically film plastic, non-recyclable plastic. We think the manufacturer should be taking that back. A couple of, like last year or so, a grocery store called Mom's tried an experiment. They worked with a company called TerraCycle out of New Jersey. And people were allowed to bring in all sorts of wrappers, plastic bag wrappers, snack packs. Well, within a few months, I was one of the people that was doing that. They became completely overwhelmed and they ended the program. It was kind of aspirational recycling run amok. So we have to figure something out, something better to do with these snack bags and non-recyclable multi-layer plastics that were so apparent in this film, washing up on the beaches of other countries.
So Amy, I'm going to ask you to sort of finish it
Yeah.
up so we can get to, I mean, the many questions
Yes.
that we've got.
Okay. There is federal legislation that's tackling some of these issues. We ask you to write to the senators in support of S3263. Look it up and you can write a letter. Thank you to Congressman Raskin and Sarbanes for co-sponsoring the House version of the bill. You can also boycott companies that make this kind of stuff. And if you write to me at amy.marin@mdsierra.org, I have other ideas and I'd love for you to help me out. Thanks.
Awesome, thank you. So that was a lot to to go over. You managed to get it in pretty well. So I am going to do my best, guys. Laura is feeding me the questions. I'm going to try and do them in a timely matter as I can. I'm going to start from, I believe this one is probably for you, Adam. How much of the plastic that we put in our blue recycle boxes ends up being burned at the Dickerson incinerator? Question for that one. What is that, 16%? Is that what that is we're looking at?
So what's going in the garbage and going to the incinerator is about 16%. Amy is right, but surprisingly, in the recycling, what people are putting in the cart, between 30 and 40% actually of what's there is then we're pulling out and then sending to the incinerator, and that's stuff like this, a lot of plastic bags and a lot of mixed plastics. So you know, the documentaries are talking about how complicated and all these new products are. So even your toothbrush has 3 or 4 kinds of plastics in it. You know, my pen has different plastics in it, and unless you disassemble every part. So so that's the reason why that number is so high.
So is the answer really, if you don't know, if you can't say for sure it's being recycled, to just put it in the trash?
That's right. When in doubt, throw it out.
Oh, sad, sad. All right. Our next question. I'm really concerned about plastics that are not recyclable and are being. Oh, this looks like it'll be about the same question. Are being burned in Dickerson. A PBS special pointed out that fruit clamshells with PET recycled markets are not being recycled. Is this true for us? I guess you put that in. Moving down, and pardon me as I scroll down, is Montgomery County, Maryland working with other states on a national consortium to ban, control, pay for disposals? I guess that probably because for Evan or Adam.
Repeat the question, I'm sorry.
Is Montgomery County, Maryland working with other states on a national consortium to ban, control, pay for disposals?
I'm not familiar with about our efforts to do work with other states, but you know, scrolling through some of the questions, people have asked about bag bans in general.
Right.
And I think this is the opportune time to say that our state lawmakers, some of our state lawmakers, tried to ban plastic bags in the state, and it failed.
Right.
And so, you know, partly some of it was politics, partly because it was the session was cut short by a few weeks because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but they made some real progress, and I'm hoping that next year they'll be able to put it over the finish line.
Sounds good. Adam mentioned a couple of bills. Can you give us the numbers on those bills, Adam, that you talked about? The ban number 6, the nuisance bill. Do you have those? The bill
Yeah,
numbers?
so the last time I checked, which was late last week, is that they hadn't been assigned numbers.
Okay.
For good reason. The council is focusing on the budget and on the crisis, so they put a sort of a hold on stuff coming through. So, we sent it across the street, and it's in the queue over there.
Yeah, and I'll add to that as well. I scrolling through and seeing some of the questions. Since we've gone fully remote and we are dealing with the budget, the decision has been made that we are only going to be, the council will only be dealing with budgetary items and other items directly related to this pandemic. So that there are a lot of other things that are in the hopper. I actually have 1 or 2 bills that have been introduced but are now on hold. I already have a bill that I was hoping to introduce in the last 6 weeks, environmentally related, and I couldn't do that because of this crisis. So there's a lot of things that we're working on, some environmental, some not. But if you want to stay in touch with me, I can share with you my environmental regulations after this pandemic passes. Yes, it's good stuff.
That's it is. And we'll make a point to share whatever you've got with the attendees on here. So please pass it on. So I guess, this one definitely goes to Adam, I guess. What is your estimate on when composting will be countywide for personal residences?
Yeah, my goal is within 5 years. And I'll tell you what the biggest challenge is. The biggest challenge is finding a site to do the processing. If we had a site to do the processing, we could, we'd have no problem doing it within 5 years. Right now we have an agreement with Prince George's County to take 4,000 tons, but that can be about a 30-mile drive, not terribly sustainable. So we have been looking at sites in the county to do that. Many of you know or have been to the yard trim composting facility in the Dickerson area. That's a great facility where we take your yard trim and we turn it into leaf grow, and then you can buy it at Lowe's and Home Depot. But because of an agreement with the local civic association there, we're prohibited from processing food there. So we're looking at other county assets to maybe build another facility to handle the food. So that's really the bottleneck. But my goal is to get it. It's not rocket science. It's just kind of like finding the right places that we can put the right program in place.
Sounds good. Good. Thank you very much, because I'd be interested as well. The next one, does Montgomery County have jurisdiction to impose tax on manufacturers to require them to pay for recycling, etc.? Actually, I think this brings a lot to what Amy was talking about as far as manufacturer responsibility. I'll let anyone who wants to talk about that.
I think that's a really good question. I'm going to guess that we do not have that jurisdiction, but your question has prompted me to go ask and get a definitive answer.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah. Beautiful. Next question. Is there a proposal bill to ban to ban one-use or single-use plastic bags for grocery stores? I think we talked about that. And I promise I will share all of these to our panelists so that they can, if we're not able to respond to these, they can get back to you. So thank you for those of you who've included your email address. That makes it a little easier for us to get back. I'm scrolling down. Oh my gosh, there were so many. Laura is helping me because I'm seeing everything that everyone is sending. I'm coming down. I apologize as I scroll. While we're doing it, I can actually ask one of the comments that we wanted to talk about. We talk about, oh, excuse me. Laura, did you have something?
Yeah, to look for my batches of questions to you, Wendy.
All right. Pardon the, I'm scrolling down. Ah, here we go. Here we go. When does the requirement for all compostable single-use ware go into effect? Do we know? Here we go. The story of plastic made clear how fossil fuel industry is pushing recycling because it makes people feel it's okay to use plastics. What is being done to encourage people to reduce their use of plastics? I guess anybody can answer that one.
Yeah, so we always push source reduction. You know, the reusable bags that Councilman Glass mentioned, we have so many we can give out. We do give out some reusable bottles, and we try to encourage people to do the right thing. We always encourage people to try to thrift. You know, I'm a big picker, so, you know, I love yard sales and thrift stores and Goodwill. So we encourage people to do that. That's all important. But yeah, it's but overall, you know, I would say that we, the tree huggers, you know, united, can do everything we can, but not everybody's a tree hugger. Not everybody has the time or bandwidth. So I'm a big believer in holding the manufacturers accountable. And like the councilman mentioned, we need to figure out exactly how we can do that. But yeah, they're offloading a lot of cheap stuff on this consumer intensive, disposable society. And then all of us are left with the tab to clean it up, and it's just not fair. So, so I really do want to focus our time and energy on figuring out how to get the manufacturers in the game.
One thing, go ahead. One thing you could also do is you could, if you're, you know, a lot of people are ordering stuff online. If there's any way you can find out before it's delivered, how are they going to package it? And tell them that you don't want anything packaged in plastic or foam. Or just don't buy it if that's how it's going to come. When this whole thing is over, if you could work with restaurants and tell your restaurant that where you go get your coffee, can I please bring my own cup? Can you fill up my reusable cup? Try to patronize stores that are doing the right thing, that are green businesses. We need more green restaurants that aren't just McDonald's, that are also, you know, not using throwaway stuff, not using just recyclable stuff, but using real dishes and real utensils that can be cleaned and reused. I mean, for example, Corner Bakery, a lot of people don't know about that chain. They do. You can go in there and you can ask them just to give you a regular fork and a regular plate. I can't imagine a time when we'll ever go back and eat in restaurants, but that's the kind of thing you can do. Just say, before you serve my food, can I please have it in a regular plate with regular utensils and a regular coffee cup?
Very good.
If I can add to that just real quick. So when I watched the documentary over the weekend, some of the things, I took some notes. A woman, Carol Muffett from the Center for International Environmental Law, I'll quote something that I thought was spot on for this point. Quote, you can never solve the plastics waste crisis just by dealing with it as a waste issue. Who is making the plastics and why? And then, you know, so it's about the consumer culture that Amy mentioned, absolutely. And then someone from the American Chemistry Council blamed plastic waste on poorly run municipal collection, as if it's Montgomery County's fault that people are contributing all this plastic that can't be recycled and has to be disposed of in all these different ways. It's absolutely ludicrous, and the blame game and shifting is absolutely absurd.
I have to agree. Adam, have you noticed in the past 2 months if we've seen a reduction and increase in our recycling or trash? Do you know if you have any numbers for that as of yet to see how this pandemic has it affected us that way? here in the
Yeah,
county?
overall numbers are slightly up.
Mm.
And it's because people are just at home more. We're also seeing a lot more activity at the transfer station because people are bored to tears and finally cleaning out the closet in the basement for the first time. So, so answer is yes.
So on behalf of Bethesda Green, who sent a question, they want to thank Councilman Glass for his ongoing work and Director Ortiz for his visionary leadership on all of these important environmental issues. What is the biggest challenge at county level to further advancing environmental policies? Is it industry weighing in at local level, financial resources, resident participation? And really, any of you guys can answer this, Adam or Evan.
So it depends on what environmental policy you want to look at. As I noted in my opening comments, the climate mobilization work groups came up with hundreds of different recommendations, and some of them are culture within the county and the residents, and others will take heavy infrastructure. And so Director Ortiz and I have had a number of conversations about composting, and I've had staff go out to Prince George's County, where Director Ortiz used to lead their environmental work, to see the incredible work, the legacy he left over there, and to see what's possible. And so I wish that we had physical space here to do some of that composting and other type of work. And even if we had the space, then we'd have to come up with the millions of dollars. I don't even know what the cost estimate would be, but those are some of the constraints that we're dealing with. And just to frame it, there are other issues regarding environmental policy, and one of them is having a more electric fleet of buses. I know that's not plastics, but bear with me for 30 seconds. We would love to switch our bus fleet to switch our bus fleet to plastics. We'd love to switch our bus fleets to electric vehicles, but the problem is we don't have the charging station capacity in order to change the fleet. So there's a whole lot of different steps and layers that we have to work through and increase our infrastructure to get some of those really big ticket items. But we have among the best and brightest workforce and administrators and residents who are providing us with some of these pieces of information. So I'm confident we'll continue working through it, and good things will come.
Good.
And I'll jump in, Wendy, real quick. And I apologize, I have to scoot off because I have a late night talking to local groups.
We appreciate your doing
sort
it.
of three areas. The councilman's absolutely right. Our infrastructure is not where it needs to be. There was a lot of visionary work done in the 80s and early 90s in the county that we all enjoy today. Transfer station and the recycling center being chief among them. In the compost area, but they need an upgrade. They're inefficient. They're not using modern technologies, and they're very costly. So government has to do its piece. Public's got to do our piece. Our recycling rate, residential participation rate, has not increased more than a percentage point in the last 7 years. We're with ballpark, we're at about 42% recycling, which is not very high for a progressive jurisdiction. So we have some programs. I'll bore you another time with the details on. We're trying to get that rate up, but residents have to step up more as well. And then the last part, of my little Venn diagram I'm drawing for you here, is manufacturers. They are completely absent. So government's been doing a lot of stuff, but those dudes, and they mostly dudes, have been totally absent. And we need to focus on all. It's because we're all in it together. It's all hands on deck if we're really going to make a difference.
Very good comments. I appreciate it. And thank you so much for giving us your time, Adam. And we will get to you with other questions. So don't worry, we'll continue to follow up. Thank you.
Well, this was wonderful. I saw I was just scrolling and scrolling, just the participation, the interest, the intelligence, the commitment. So I love this. Please do this again. Please have me back. We're in it to win it with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. So that was, I'm going to let you guys, Council Member Glass and Amy, if you guys want to put your last few comments in, and then we're going to follow up. Amy, you promised, excuse me, an ask for it, but Evan will give you a couple of minutes to give your last wrap up.
Yeah, this is a really good conversation. I know we didn't get to everything people have been asking about. I'm just kind of scrolling through some of my notes to see what we didn't talk about. One of the things I know there's questions about was about synthetic turf,
Thank you.
plastic play fields. I'll share with you that earlier this year, there were some state delegates and senators in Annapolis who introduced a piece of legislation that would have put stricter parameters around state funding for our schools to make sure that the school districts, and in our case, MCPS, could not use some state funding for the purchasing, procurement of plastic turf fields. I supported that piece of legislation. A majority of the council did not, but ultimately, I don't think that passed in Annapolis. So again, the way Annapolis works is things usually on their first try don't get passed. So you got to keep trying and trying again. But I did support that measure, recognizing the health and safety and other issues that we're talking about tonight. What else? You know, there's a lot of stuff that we're doing. And I think, Doris, I saw your comment asking about the climate mobilization funding for this upcoming year. Last year, the council added $400,000 to the budget so that we could continue doing this work and finding ideas and implementing them to make our community greener and safer. And so in this budget, the council last week took a straw vote, and we voted to keep the $400,000 in the budget as well. Again, it's a continuity of service, and because it was in the budget last year and we know that the need is still there, the climate has not changed in this 1 year. Well, actually it has, it's gotten worse. We know that, which is why we're keeping the $400,000 in. Basically, I'm gonna ask all of you to help roll up your sleeves and help me and my colleagues implement these hundreds of ideas that many of you have come up with. You can follow up with me, and I'm happy to share with you the documents, which are all online. We're going to start going through them and seeing what's possible. Quite frankly, we will have to do some cost-benefit analysis because of the budget that we're in, and we'll see what we're able to do. But there are some really creative ideas in there. And again, I'm waiting for this crisis to be over, not only so that we can return to a safe community where I can see all of you in person, even give some of you hugs, right? And little things I miss. And then I can introduce some environmental legislation that is sitting in my drawer, just waiting for this pandemic to go away so that we can keep making some progress here in Montgomery County. So please do send me an email, councilmember.glass@montgomerycountymd. Follow me on social media. I'll put that in the tab as well. But definitely stay in touch, because there's a lot of good work that we need to keep doing. And I know all of you, simply by being here on a Monday night, are in it. And let's do this together.
Thanks so much. That's great. So Amy, I'm going to give you the last word. Well,
Okay.
I have one after that, but you know,
All right.
last word.
All right. So someone asked a question that I think touches on what I've been feeling, which is don't blame yourself. Don't kill yourself because you can't recycle everything, or you happen to buy stuff that, you know, you need and it's not recyclable. Just do your best. And if you have to go out to the store and buy a plastic bag, a box of bags for your trash can, try to buy the smallest size bags you can. Try to buy the smallest trash can you can. And just take a look and do your own little waste audit every week and think about what is it I'm throwing away. Take a look at that. Go to a website called Zero Waste USA. I'm actually taking a wonderful training class from them. They have some great resources on there. Zero Waste USA. Most good ideas come out of California, and that's where some of that interesting stuff is coming from. So I guess my final thought would be, it's not your fault just try to live the best zero waste lifestyle you can, and then we have to elect people who like Evan and appoint like executives who like Adam who will do the right thing.
That's wonderful. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you guys all coming in. So for those of you whose questions I didn't get to, I apologize. This was our first attempt, but it will not be our last. We will continue this conversation. We have talks on food as well as plastic and other things that are of course of concern for us. So I really appreciate everybody stepping up. If you have a couple more minutes for anybody who didn't get their emails into the chat, please put them in. We will make sure that you'll get an update of what this is. We are also recording this, so I promise this will also be available if you didn't hear anything, everything. But once again, this is Wendy, and I want to thank you guys all for joining us for this, The Story of Plastic, and I hope everybody enjoyed the movie. It was powerful. I had to watch it twice to make sure I caught everything because I felt like my mouth was gaping through most of it because I was seeing the enormity of the problem. But thanks again, and we look forward to talking to you again. Have a good evening. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Be safe.
Thank you.